Hey, you. Welcome back to the channel. Hey, guys, today we're going to talk about Krypton, Episode 3, the Rankless Initiative. And so, Krypton, it's been quite an enjoyment for me to watch these last three episodes. I do like the direction that Krypton is going in. I guess my only issue at this point would be that, and it's kind of strange that I think personally I would say this, but as I look at the comparisons between Krypton, the television show, and its relation to what we got in the Zack Snyder universe, in relation to the Man of Steel movies, is that I think I would like to actually see this show have more of the feel and element to the Zack Snyder universe. And that's very strange, as I've had many issues with the Zack Snyder universe and how they and their vision of Superman. But I think that the difference is that whereas with the Man of Steel and Superman, whereas I saw it as this hero that comes to Earth and becomes this product of both the values of Earth and humanity. Krypton, I think, does work itself. It does work well with a darker element of what the Zack Snyder universe, I think, kind of perceived with the Superman story. And I think it would make this feel a more like grand as a production, whereas at certain elements of the Krypton episodes, it does kind of feel like your weekly serial, with your with very basic writing, and basically there are certain elements of it that why I do wish it could have a slightly darker tone. And at first I thought it was going in that direction, and I said, okay, this is going to be pretty good. But then it does come off as you get a lot of this comic relief, you get a lot of this, very, basic storytelling. Still think this is a good show. I still like the direction it's going. But if I had just to pick something that's kind of bothering me about it right now, it would probably be that. So, moving on with what we got in this week's episode, we did get this leave off of what's happening with the Sentry, what's happening with the Brainiac probe, who has it affected, who has it infected. And so, at the Fortress of Solitude, we get the consciousness uploaded of Val-El, and it's being used to determine what's in the probe, how it works, and has it been released as Val-El. There is some data on it as Val-El research did reach a certain point to determine what it was, but this is very limited data. So a lot of things they don't know. They don't know what's going to happen exactly when they open this thing. And so Segel goes, well, let's go ahead and open it, take the risk. Let's try to figure out what's going on with this thing before it infects Krypton, and the message can get to Brainiac that Krypton's out there, and then Krypton can be collected. And so, we get to learn that one of the last people to come in contact with the probe was a Rom, a friend, actually a friend of Segel's that we get to learn was infected, by this probe. But of course, it kind of does this who is the infected type person episode, and we don't know really who it is. But one of the central parts of the episode, what seemed to be the main story, is dealing with the terrorist organization Black Zero. Now, this is very relevant and interesting to today, what goes on with terrorism, because Lyta Zod is now the commander of the garrison of the army, and she understands that there does exist this terrorist organization, Black Zero, but at the same time, there exists innocent people, the rankless citizens, sat somewhere in between. And generally, as we understand terrorism, what happens when terrorist uprisings break out, that there's this type of mixture of support from the communities that they are, engaging with, that they are mixed up with, and in some cases, these communities are supporting the terrorist organizations by choice. Some of them are supporting them by force, and some of them don't have anything at all to do with them. But it's all mixed up, and it's hard to tell who are the good guys from the bad guys, who are part of the terrorist organizations and who aren't. Kind of brings to mind, and I hate to give spoilers on this movie, but it brings to mind a movie I saw some years ago with Samuel L. Jackson called The Rules of Engagement. And what was involved in that movie was about military forces that would go into these areas of insurrection, where you would have both the community mixed up as terrorists, supporting terrorists, and posing as people just part of the community, but at the same time fighting the army. And this was not limited to women and children who would also pick up firearms and shoot. So there's this very powerful scene where Samuel L. Jackson gives a command to fire on the group of people in a crowd, much like this scene here, what we get with the Rankless Initiative, and he's brought up on charges due to the idea that he has executed these women and children who weren't militant combatants. The problem is, you come to find out later that the children and the women were actually military combatants. They actually picked up arms and they were firing. Sorry about spoiling that, guys. The movie is very old. I hope you have seen it. If not, I do apologize. But it does kind of is relative to the point that we don't know who the terrorists are. And this is what Lyda Zod has to face. But at the same time, she understands that they are good people and that there are different ways to weeding out these terrorists. Of course, things don't go the way she wants, and she ends up, and some of her subordinates, or one of her subordinates, ends up, killing some of the rankless. Now, Lita wants to show good face with these people and get their support. So what she does is she both shows justice in dealing with the consequences of what her, or basically bringing to justice her subordinate for executing these people. But she also makes it clear that it goes both ways and tells the crowd that now you guys can disperse or you too will be arrested. That this justice that is being delivered is for everyone. Right? So, so this is like the central theme of the story, and this is being pushed by Vex, who's the chief magistrate, because now he's under threat by the Voice of Rao. Voice of Rao is, very upset about all of these threats against his life. He's like, what is going on? Where is the army? Who's doing something about this? So it's a lot of pressure on Vex to the point he himself is being threatened, to face dire consequences for not stopping these uprisings, that maybe it's time for him to be replaced, that he is not doing his job properly. And so, Vex is under stress and he's pressing forward all this. But also the second part of this is dealing with Brainiac. Who is the Brainiac drone, right? And this is classic. This is Brainiac 101, to assimilate, to create drones. We see it in every incarnation of Brainiac. Pretty much he's doing this. And it's no different here. So, we got to see, of course, with Rom being infected by this Brainiac Sentry, that she has tremendous powers to kill many of the soldiers who have tried to subdue her in a checkpoint, where they're trying to locate the terrorists. And Rom is exhibiting these brainiac powers, and we get to learn she's the beacon. She's sending she's the transmitter rather, and she's sending this information back to Brainiac. Now Brainiac knows that Krypton can be collected. I did like this episode. We got Seg, in order to save Rom, who's a friend of hers, infected with Brainiac, to disobey commands long enough for him to try to save Rom, but being affected with Brainiac, the research that Val-El has on her back at the Fortress Side 2 is very limited, so they don't know if Brainiac can even be removed from her, that she can live without the Brainiac inside of her, or, whatever, Brainiac did to her. And so now Light Azad is aware of all this. She's seen this, and she wants this to be reported to the Scientific Guild. But Segel, of course, has his misgivings about what's going on and why that can't be done. But I found that interesting. So although Lyta has disobeyed orders, she at least now knows that Segel is telling the truth. So maybe at this point it doesn't matter so much for her, whatever the consequences may be at the loss of her command, or whether there may be even more dire consequences, because she now knows that, Segel was telling the truth, and that at least that the risk she's taken, mattered, right? That were necessary. So I really like this episode, guys. It's going to be very interesting to see how they go forward, especially now that Brainiac's on his way. Some spoilers that have been going around online. I'll just give some information that's been going on around online about Krypton, is that the voice of Rao in Brainiac, maybe the voice of Rao may be some type of agent of Brainiac. Maybe he is Brainiac. Sometimes with television shows now, we've seen so much of everything, we can kind of figure out what might be happening, what it may be going on. But I like this show, guys. I'm definitely going to keep watching it. Like I said before, I was going to watch it anyway. I am a big Superman fan in the Superman universe. It's going to be quite interesting to see what's going to happen, what new characters we're going to be introduced to, as has been hinted at by the producers and writers, and what the next episode is going to be about, and going forward. So far, so good, guys. I'm on board with Krypton. Tell me all what you think. Guys, if you like content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe. And until next time, take care.